On. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to this newest edition of Anomalies. Today, as usual, we have a very interesting guest with us who has a lot of good information that we are going to enjoy hearing from, I'm sure. My name is Gwen Farrell, and I'll be your host today. And my co-host is Dan Hall. Dan, how are you doing today?
Hello, Gwen. Fine. How are you?
Good. Well, we're managing to hold it together here in this heat. So hot in Phoenix, but okay, good. Well, let's get started. I'm going to start out by introducing you to our guest today with her bio, and then we'll get right into the fun stuff. So, okay, our guest today is Stacey Wright. She is the state director for Arizona MUFON, and she's also the director of Phoenix MUFON. She is a certified field investigator and STAR team member for MUFON for the past 17 years. She has worked as team leader on Roswell, New Mexico archaeological digs with Don Schmidt. She helped design and produce the award-winning Phoenix Lights exhibit for the Arizona Historical Society Museum. And she was a team leader for the revision of MUFON's State Director Handbook. Stacey is the organizer of MUFON's annual Field Investigator Boot Camp, which has been held in Mesa, Arizona for the past 6 years and helps to train new field investigators. She has a true passion for investigating and appreciating different kinds of mysteries, whether they be archaeological, interdimensional, or even celestial. In addition, she has enjoyed working for 28 years for the public school system. And in her spare time, she enjoys kayaking, star watching, archery, and camping and hiking in the tall pines. Stacey Wright, welcome to Anomalies.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I guess we can get started with the questions. Dan, did you want to start off with our interview today?
Just a reminder to everybody, if you're listening to this and you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to our channel because that helps us out. So both Gwen and I, as I recall, are former MUFON members. Why did you join MUFON, Stacey?
Well, I had all of a sudden become very interested in the subject after reading one book, and that was The Alien Agenda by Jim Marrs.
Yeah, I know about that book.
Yeah. Kind of grabbed me, and I thought, wow, this is some really cool stuff. And I wonder if there's a UFO meeting here in this big city of Phoenix. Surely there's got to be something here. Mm-hmm. So I went out online and started looking and came across this funny sounding group called MUFON. And I notified them and I said, hey, it looks like, there's no meetings here in this, giant, beautiful city of Phoenix. Why would that not be? And so they said, well, it's just kind of laying dormant for 7 or 8 years. We don't really know why, but we'll get right on that and we'll get back to you. So I didn't know that the person I had contacted was the executive director of MUFON at the time. It was the only contact name I could come up with. So lo and behold, about 2 weeks later, I was contacted back and there was a MUFON meeting that was going to be held. And they were looking for people to start up the new Phoenix chapter. So I just kind of raised my hand and I thought, you know what, someone's got to do this. This is too important. So I thought I can maybe do this, even though I'd never spoken in front of anyone before or organized a group or a meeting or anything. Mm-hmm. But that's how it all started.
Sure. I was just waiting.
Go ahead.
Just waiting for you to show up.
Maybe, yeah.
Right, yeah. I remember too around that time when I moved to Phoenix, and I think I had learned about MUFON on the X-Files probably or something like that. And I was looking for MUFON too. I couldn't find it, and I thought, well, I don't know, maybe it's not here. And then eventually, Stacey began to advertise, and somehow I managed to find it, and then it started, and it just hasn't stopped since then.
Yeah, it's been a great process with this growth of Phoenix MUFON. I mean, we started out with, I think, 4 or 6 people that first night, and we went from location to location to location because we kept outgrowing the place within 1 or 2 meetings. And so now I think we might be on our fifth or sixth location, and we're at the beautiful Arizona Historical Society Museum now, which is just the best of
Really
the best.
nice. Yeah. It's
Really
great.
a great place, and they love us there. So we're really happy to be there, and we have grown from those 4 or 6 people per meeting up to anywhere between 120 and 275.
Wow, yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great place, and the meetings are wonderful. The speakers, you can hear speakers there that you're not going to hear anyplace else unless you travel across the country and pay a lot of money at a conference. And so some of the biggest speakers in the field come to Phoenix MUFON, and people really enjoy the programs that are put on there. So yeah, Stacey, maybe not. They do. Maybe not everybody knows about MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. Can you just tell us maybe a little of the history of it, or what it does, and how you can get involved in it if somebody wants to?
Okay, well, MUFON is the acronym for the Mutual UFO Network. And it started out in 1969, and it took off where Project Blue Book left off. So as we all know, the Air Force had some very early, they were trying to maybe look into this phenomenon a little bit, but they were mostly trying to debunk it. So J. Allen Hynek was their head guy on all of this debunking, and through time he realized that there really is something to this, and we should be looking into this for scientific reasons and for benefits, instead of trying to tell the public, no, nothing to see here, you didn't see a thing, never mind. So we took over in 1969 when Project Blue Book left off. And MUFON is the largest database for collecting sighting reports of UFOs in the world. There are a couple other organizations out there that do the sighting reports, but they do not investigate anything. So it really doesn't go anywhere except down on a piece of paper or a spreadsheet with them. MUFON takes this case and we actually investigate it with certified field investigators. And it's a worldwide organization. And I don't know how many members we've got now. I'm sure it's about 10,000 members.
Wow.
Arizona alone, I think we have 280 members here, and we have 25 certified field investigators just in Arizona. So it's something that has just grown, and people love this, and we keep all the cool little anecdotes of everyone's cases, and hopefully we've educated the public, which is one of our goals. And it's a interesting organization. I mean, it's very interesting. There's not a lot of places you can go where they have meetings and they tell you all about everything. You learn things, you can become a field investigator. And it's just really a process that, we've found a lot of fun, and I think everyone else does too.
Yeah. So how could somebody reach the MUFON if they're interested?
Well, you would just go to, after you have a sighting, you saw something anomalous up in the sky, you think, that doesn't look quite right. I think I need to report this in as a UFO sighting. You just go to www.mufon.com. That is our main website. And there's a tab there that says report a UFO. So once you click on that tab, there's a short questionnaire that you would fill out about your sighting. And then you hit submit. It goes into MUFON's main database, and then it shoots it back down to the state that it originated from, and it hits my desk, and then I will assign a field investigator to that case. So it all happens pretty quickly. You would be contacted by a field investigator within 2 or 3 days at the most.
Okay, and then if somebody's interested in maybe becoming a field investigator or learning about that, can they go the same way?
Yeah, you can. There's information on the MUFON.com website about how to become a field investigator if you're interested. And what it entails is getting the field investigator manual, which you purchase from MUFON, and you study that a bit. There is a 100-question open book exam that you take at the end of however you feel comfortable with that. And even though people think, oh, it's an open book, anyone can pass that, it's pretty tough.
Yeah, it's tough.
I mean, it's not easy. You have to look for the answers, and MUFON, I think, puts the answers, they word the answers in a different way than what the book will present it, because they really want you to go through that book and they want you to know it like the back of your hand. They don't want you just to guess at the answer. So they change the question around just a little bit so that you're actually thinking before you put your answer down there. And we just want to make sure that we have the right people for the right job on this, you know, some people who can analyze things and
Right.
really get into their work. And some people skills are necessary too, because you're talking to people from all walks of life. And so you have to be a great listener. There are some interviewing techniques that you will go through. MUFON has a side group here called MUFON University. And through that, you take a bunch of courses that will teach you a little bit about everything having to do with investigating UFOs and talking to people and handling the public, the media, everything else. So it's really a very well-rounded education that you get when you become a MUFON certified field investigator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as someone who has worked with Stacey when she was my director, when I was a field investigator for Arizona, I can say that it's more like it's very serious and it's very scientific, but it's more like just a family, or family maybe not right, but an organization. You feel comfortable, especially with Stacey, I can say, because the way she runs Arizona is that you're always supported and people get together and they help each other. And so it's fun. It can be a lot of fun as well. Yeah, so
Yeah,
great.
we try to keep it
yeah.
fun. I mean, you've got to keep it fun to keep people interested, and you've got to
Mhm.
keep people interested to keep the work righteous. So, you know, we really try to do a good job here. And if someone doesn't like, say when the case is all done, and the field investigator will write to the witness and say, okay, this is what we found, and this is the final disposition that we gave to your case. So a lot of times people only want to believe what they want to believe.
Right.
So if they get a disposition from you of, you know, a identified flying object, but they're like, no, I don't believe that at all, then, you know, they have the opportunity to appeal that decision. Absolutely. We're not telling anyone what to do or how to think or what to see. We're just trying to help them through by utilizing all of our tools and techniques as to what that was, maybe what that wasn't as well. So yes, people always have the right to appeal that decision, have another field investigator take a look at it, and, you know, basically get a second opinion.
Yeah, great, thanks. Dan, I'm sure you've got some questions.
Yeah, I always have questions, I guess. So maybe hear a little bit more of the viewers, listeners might want to hear a little bit more about the structure of MUFON. So there's like state section directors, there's your state director. I live in Washington. We don't even have a state director presently. So could you talk a little bit more about the structure of
Yeah.
MUFON?
Well, at the very top of MUFON, we have one executive director. And right now that is Dave McDonald, and he's based out of Cincinnati. And so Dave and his secretary who runs the office, they're the only two paid people in all of MUFON. We've got thousands and thousands of volunteers. They are the only two that are paid. Everyone else is a volunteer. We all love what we're doing, and because we keep doing it. So you've got your executive director and the secretary. That's MUFON's main office. And they have a board of directors also. I believe there's 5 or 6 people on the board. And then each state, at least as far as the United States goes, each state has a state director. And then below that state director, you can, I don't know how some of the other states divide it up. I mean, Arizona is a very large state, so we divide up our areas by county. So if you were back east in, say, Massachusetts or somewhere like that, it might be a little different because it's very small, and I'm just not sure how they do that. But in Arizona, we have it divided up by county. So we could have actually one chapter per county if we wanted to, but we have a lot of wide open spaces that aren't, you know, very populated. So right now in Arizona, we have Phoenix MUFON, we have Sedona MUFON up in our northern area, and we have Tucson MUFON down in our southern area. So I'd like to see, you know, MUFON groups in all corners of Arizona. So we could use a couple more chapters. There's a lot of interested people, and for them to have to drive to one of the metro areas to attend a meeting sometimes is really hard. But our 3 chapters actually do have monthly meetings every month with really good speakers. So if you know, wanted to make a day of it and take a little road trip, see some really interesting stuff at a MUFON meeting and then drive yourself back home, you could do that, or spend the night if you have, you know, people in that town that you know too, you know, and just kind of make a weekend of it. But that's how we're set up here in Arizona. So below the state director, there is an assistant state director, and ours is Shane Hurd, and he does a fantastic job. And then we have they're called the people that would run each chapter or county or however it's set up. They would be the state section directors. So we have 3 of those because we have 3 groups. We have Phoenix, Sonoma, and Tucson. So within those chapters, you have just your regular attendees, and they don't have to be MUFON members to attend. A lot of people can opt to join MUFON, and we have some different levels of membership there. They're all online there at MUFON.com. You can check all that out there. But there's MUFON members, they're just simple attendees, people that have never been before. Maybe there's some witnesses there that saw something and they just, maybe want to gravitate to a group that there might be someone there that saw something similar to what they saw. So this is a great outlet for them because it, involves them to a degree where they can come and meet people and find out that we're not a bunch of kooks in there, that it's very serious stuff and we do go about it in a very scientific way. And they might meet some friends and exchange some ideas and some opinions. And, it's just really a great way to get their own network going. So we see people forge some really great friendships through this. So after our meetings, we always go and eat because that seems to be the thing that brings people together the most. And so we'll go and eat dinner somewhere after it as a group. We usually have about 30 people that go eat. And that's where people really get to know one another across the dinner table. From talking and laughing and joking about things. So it really helps kind of the glue of the situation.
What about the STAR team?
What? STAR team?
Yeah. What's
Okay,
that?
well, the STAR team right now is being reorganized within MUFON. I'm not sure what they're going to do with it exactly. But in the past, the STAR team, it stands for the Strike Team Area Research, I think.
Okay.
So that would be the group that it has, that's the go team. Okay, so if we were to have a landing of a saucer or a crash landing or something like that outside the city limits, say out here in the desert a little bit, there's, I would be notified first, and then I would call the STAR team, and we would all grab our bag of equipment and measuring devices and our little, bag of tricks, and we would convene at a certain place to try to see what's going on there. Now, the STAR team also can be a little bit scary because do you have the right equipment to evaluate what is going on there? Is there radiation? Is there something there that could be harmful to you? Should you go into the vicinity of this crash? And then there's always that one question, are you going to beat the government entities there? So it'd be a little race against time. I mean, I'm on the team, but we've never actually had something where we had to go, like that. It would be very fun and exciting, but also a little bit scary because you just don't know what you're encountering when you come across something that is extraterrestrial. So, maybe some people that were former military or something like that might have a much better idea of how to approach things like this. But the STAR team is trained, and we do have, certain equipment that we would take out there with us, hopefully to try to take some readings. But the possibilities of what you're going to find are endless. So it's kind of a crapshoot at that point.
Yeah.
I think one of the unfortunate things, and you're kind of an example of how this can turn out to the positive. There isn't a structure that's in place. It's all volunteer. So if you don't have somebody who wants to be the state director, you don't have a state director. And I'm sure that causes headaches on some level to get your organization to do what it's supposed to do.
There are a few states, maybe up to about 10 or 12 right now, that do not have a state director. There was simply no one from their state that could step forward and take on the responsibilities of this, or maybe was not trained well enough. I'm not sure how that happens, but I know that there's one state director can handle 3 or 4 states if they want to. And that's what some of our people do. So they take over until, someone else from that state can go forward and take the responsibility. But that state director, yes, we have some that are taking over 3, 4, 5 states. So these are busy people because I imagine they are the one and only field investigator for that area as well. So sometimes that gets them real busy. So
really busy.
in the case of someone, a state being too busy and too many cases and not being able to handle all the cases that come in, we have what's called our CAG team, CAG. So it's the Case Assistance Group. So we have a group of volunteers that are together just in place for a state that might have a flap of UFO sightings. So, you know, your spreadsheet is inundated with sightings that are coming in. You don't have anyone that can do all these. Well, that CAG team will take that over and make sure that those sightings get attended to.
Thanks.
Interesting. MUFON has been around for 50 odd years now. How many years has it been? 50 something?
So yeah.
And during this time, they have really built an organization that's very well organized, and they trust their people. And so that it's there's a lot. And some of the things I remember is that they also have things called special teams in MUFON. And I guess the STAR team is one, and then there's the ERT, and isn't there like a dive team that does underwater things?
Does have a dive team.
Yeah.
Because not only do we have unidentified flying objects, but we have unidentified submerged objects that are under the surface of our oceans or lakes. So this happens a lot. And that's one of the subjects that I love so much is the USOs. I think that's super interesting because they seem to be able to go through water without any resistance whatsoever. They've got that maneuverability. It's just crazy what they can do underwater. And when you hear, we probably know more about the surface of Mars than we do about deep abysses in our ocean. These things really, you know, need some attention because there could be all kinds of things hiding down there. There could be bases down there. There's certainly great hiding spots, and craft have been seen going in and out of the water so much that this just can't be ignored. So if something were to come up where we have a crashed craft or something under the water, we do have a certified dive team that would go to that location and try to find out what's going on. So yeah, we've got that. We've got the ERT, which stands for the Experience or Resource Team. And Gwen can probably be the expert to tell you about that because she's very familiar with it. But this is a resource that MUFON has when someone has seen something, has had an experience, has had contact with an extraterrestrial or something that seems out of this dimension. It really just absolutely rocks their world. These people don't know if they're crazy. They don't know if they should talk about it. They're agitated. They're anxious. They don't know if it's going to happen again. And they just really need someone to talk to, someone that maybe has had similar experiences or can talk them through this, maybe get them some psychiatric help if they feel that they need it. So, I mean, I'll let Gwen talk more on that because she's the expert on that. But yeah, it's a great resource that MUFON has. We really try to help people, not just take down their information. We really care about these people and their well-being.
Yeah.
So I have a kind of a logic question there because I used to be a member of the ERT before we joined OPUS. What's the logic in saying that in order to be part of the ERT, you have to be a field investigator?
Well, they just want people to be trained because like I said earlier in the field investigators manual, when you go through that and then you're tested on that as well, there's a lot of stuff with the interviewing techniques. There's astronomy. I mean, there's some subjects here that you need to know just a little bit about before you delve into this subject, because if you don't know what's out there, what looks normal, you can't tell someone what they saw. You know, you can't say, oh, that must have been Venus, but say you don't know where Venus is located at a certain time of year. I mean, you just need a little bit of training. So they want people to be field investigators first, just for that batch of really good sound training. And then if you want to break off and go into the ERT, then at least you've got that little background and you're more of a well-rounded person that person can trust talking to.
Yeah. Thank you. This has been really fascinating about MUFON, but I'm going to shift gears a little more to sort of the personal question, and that is, have you ever had contact or a sighting?
I have worked with you a little bit, Gwen, on trying to find out if I have had contact. I you know, there must be something just right under the skin, maybe something there. Otherwise, why would I have this passion or this interest for this subject. But I've undergone some hypnotherapy to a very deep degree and have not been able to find out anything. So I don't know about that yet. Maybe there's something that will unfold itself later. I just don't know about that. As far as having a UFO sighting, I think maybe 3 or 4 times I have had a UFO sighting and have reported that into MUFON and had it investigated, and a couple of them were unknowns. So when there's an unknown, it means everything on our bag of tricks has been tried. We cannot find out what that is. It's not anything of this earth. It's not a natural occurring phenomenon. It's not birds. It's not a bag floating up in the sky. I mean, it's not a planet. So when it's a true unknown, that's what MUFON has very little of, actually, but that's the really fun, important parts of it. About 95% of everything that MUFON investigates can be found out to be something else. But it's that 5% that remains as an unknown that's really the most interesting thing, because even if it was just 1%, it's like, well, what is that? What is that? We don't know what that is. We can't find out what it is. What is that? So that 5% of unknowns is something that, you know, is really pretty interesting.
So you're
so
still wondering.
Things I saw, you know, they weren't a craft that had landed on the ground. It would be really awesome to see a giant boomerang shape coming across the sky and blotting out the stars. That would be awesome. But really the things that I've seen have just been some lights in the sky that were doing things that shouldn't be happening. So what made it anomalous, I don't really know at this point, but it was anomalous, and that's why I reported it into MUFON and had it investigated.
Yeah. Would you be willing to share a case or so with our viewers of really interesting cases that you have come across doing this work?
Yeah, I've got one that comes to mind. I was working with one of our field investigators, Mary Ann Robb, and we had a gentleman that reported something, and he lived north of Phoenix, just on the outskirts of town. So he was really in a remote, more of a remote area. His land bordered on state land, which means just desert and mountains. And it was a really cool place. We went out to his house and to try to see where his vantage point was when he saw this. And he had a fence in his backyard that separated him from that state land. And right on the other side of that fence, he had put a water hole there. He had made a water hole because he liked to view some of the critters that were coming in, like the javelina are out there, bobcats, mountain lions, coyotes, quail. I mean, we have all kinds of things come in. So he wanted to be able to see the wildlife out there. So he had built this water hole there, and he maybe had like a bird block there too, of bird seed or a salt lick, something to keep them interested. And then he had a couple of game cameras on the fence posts there, one facing north and one facing south. And his house, his backyard was to the south, probably about, I'd say 40 or 50 yards away from this fence was his house. So what he was seeing was a craft that came flying right over the top of his house, and it was doing this. It was doing a real wavy motion as it came over, and it swooped right over the top of that game camera and kept on going. And we thought, wow, this is really interesting. And, you know, and it looked like a little, you know, light orb coming at him, but then it seemed to have developed some kind of things coming out from the sides, maybe part of the craft, maybe some wings, completely soundless. And so what we determined at the end that this was, and this is through photo analysis of his video footage, it was a spider web that was blowing on the breeze very gently coming across toward the game camera. Wow. And a lot of times on spider webs, they're just very fine, so they float on the breeze really easily. But if there's ever a little droplet of moisture on there, or maybe sometimes even dust, the camera will pick up that anomaly and it will brighten it. So what we were seeing was a little drop of dew or moisture on this spider web as it was coming toward the camera, like it was flying or floating toward us, and then it just kind of like went over our heads. But it was a spider web that had a drop of moisture on it, and that lit up, and it kind of drew some light out to the sides and lit that up as well. it was a really cool looking sighting. And then when we found out, we thought, well, that's really interesting too, that a spider web can do that. So we closed it out, as, some kind of, earth thing. We've had a lot of sightings since then that have proven to be spider webs as well. Most of them, when people send in some video footage from their Ring camera on their doorstep, they're seeing all kinds of things. There are creatures, there's things going on out there. Well, the spiders are making webs out there and they're floating in the breeze. Sometimes the webs are going right across the camera lens, which, just looks like all kinds of weird stuff going on. But yeah, spiders are very busy. And
oh yeah, they definitely are.
It seems like a lot of these sightings have been spider web.
Yeah.
I just thought that was really interesting that it turned out to be that. It looked so cool and so real and just awesome. But
yeah.
Spider web. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's good too to have somebody look at that, even if it turned out to be unidentifiable, then the person's not worried. And they think, okay, it's just spiders. And maybe they need to do something about the spiders. I mean, if there's that many, maybe they need to look at it, to do something. But so it may be that a person may be disappointed that they haven't seen, an anomalous craft of some kind, but at least, that it gets things straightened out so people understand. And I think that's important.
Yeah. We all want to see that mothership thing, of course. We want to see that.
Of course, we all want to see that.
We want to see it land, of course, and all kinds of really cool stuff. But a lot of times that just isn't exactly what we're seeing.
That's not what it is. Yeah. Dan?
I'd be interested in just hearing about some other cases that you've investigated. I mean, Arizona's got Travis Walton. There are a bunch of different things have happened, and we've had Marianne Robb on our program.
We have Marianne.
Yeah, just talk about some of the other cases that you've looked into, the more interesting ones.
Well, the Travis Walton case is, one of Arizona's claims to fame. And, this happened back in 1975 when Travis was a young man, along with 6 other guys in his crew out logging. And they saw this mysterious light coming through the trees as they were finishing their day and driving back, all in the same truck. He had one of those big old trucks that would fit all kinds of people in the front seat and in the big back seat. So there was either 6 or 7 guys in there, I think 6. Coming back from a hard day, all beat, tired, and they just saw this light through the trees, and they're thinking, oh my gosh, the forest is on fire. They thought, what else could this light be? It's not the moon coming up yet. There's a fire started over there. So of course they had the chainsaws, they had the shovels, they had equipment, and it was their duty actually to stop and put out any hot spots or any fires that they might see along the way for the Forest Service. This was part of their contract. So they drove around the mountain to try to find out what this light was, and they came across this craft that was hovering, 30 or 40 feet above the ground. And Travis, being the young, guy that he was and not scared too much, that bulletproof thing, he jumped out of the passenger side door and walked closer to this craft. And I think what happened is it started powering up, because he said there was more of a whirring sound that was happening. And the guys in the truck said the same thing, that it sounded like maybe it was powering up in some way. Travis was too close to the craft and kind of under it at that point. And he got zapped with a beam of light or energy of some sort that sent him flying 20, 30 feet in the air. When he landed, he bounced. His friends saw all this happen and freaked them out. Of course, they're wild, hysterics. And they saw this happen to their friend. They thought maybe he was dead. So they took off in a hurry. They were in a frenzy. They got out of there. They were heading into town, had time to talk. Let's go back. Let's go get Travis. Let's see what's going on. No, he's dead. We know he's dead. Just get out of here, So they went into town and reported this. And authorities went back out there looking for Travis. Nothing was there. Couldn't find any sign of him or anything else. And a couple days later, Travis appeared back in town and had his story, and he told it to the authorities, and he was abducted. A lot of people, have seen the movie. The movie is more of a Hollywood horror movie. It's not the real deal. book Fire in the Sky will explain a lot, and it's really a good book. And then Jennifer Stein put out a documentary on Fire in the Sky and Travis Walton that's really well done too. So that explains even more. But Travis to this day will say, you know, I wasn't really abducted. That wasn't their plan. This was an ambulance call. He said, I accidentally got zapped by some form of energy. They knew it. They knew I was injured. They picked me up, took me aboard the craft, fixed me up in some way, mended me up, gave me kind of a tour, and then set him loose again. So he says this was absolutely an ambulance call is what happened. So I like the idea of that. I mean, he wasn't hurt in the process. He says that he was actually enhanced a little bit. And he's got a fantastic story. If you ever get a chance to hear it, go listen to Travis Walton speak. His story has not changed in almost 50 years. So it's really quite fascinating. And we're going to try to get together a 50th anniversary shindig for Travis this next November of 2025, because that will be his 50 years.
50th.
We're having to speak at Phoenix MUFON, and we're going to have a big fun gala event there surrounding that.
Cool.
And hopefully the rest of that weekend, we might have some other events, either in Phoenix or around the state, hopefully out at his site, the actual site where it happened. And he's okay with taking people out there. So we're going to try to fix up something just to commemorate that. It's worthy of, you know, some commemoration. So we're going to be doing that.
Yeah, it
That'd
is.
be cool.
The other claim to fame, of course, that Arizona has is the Phoenix Lights. So that, you know, was something that was witnessed by tens of thousands of people. There was over 1,000 911 calls that came in that night. The phones were just flooded with calls. The only thing that we're wishing we really had was some footage. But back in 97, there was not many cell phones around. No one had a cell phone in their pocket like they do now. So we don't have good photos. We don't have good footage. We just have the eyewitness reports. But what we have when we have a lot of eyewitness reports is we consider that evidence, not proof. Those are two separate things, but it is evidence. This eyewitness reports from a mass sighting like this, that is definitely evidence. So, I mean, on that night, there was one very large craft, which is, people think there was just one, but there was really 7 or 8 craft that were seen in the skies over Arizona throughout the day. Even the night before, up on the Indian reservation, there was quite a big show going on up there. During the day, there was craft of different shapes and sizes coming across the state. But at 8:30 p.m., there was this giant boomerang shaped craft that came right over the top of Phoenix. So this major metropolitan area. I think you probably would not have seen it unless you were looking up, because there was zero sound. It was very, very low, very, very slow, and zero sound. And that's the thing that gets me is, how do you fly something that big without the sounds of propulsion? Everything that we create now that goes really fast is also really loud.
Really loud.
We don't know how to create stuff without a bunch of noise going on to it. So, but this thing was low, slow, and soundless. And it just kind of cruised all over the, you know, from one corner of Arizona to the other corner over into the border of Mexico. And it was witnessed by, you know, tens of thousands of people. A lot of people said, well, it came from that corner of Arizona up there. That's where, you know, Las Vegas is. That's Area 51. It must have been something that was housed out there at Area 51. So when you look at that and consider that, okay, well, if it was something that we were housing that was extraterrestrial up there, then what? It got loose. It got loose and flew over the state. Or if it was ours and it was some super secret military thing that we were working on, why would you then parade it over the top of a major metropolitan city for people to see? I don't think you would do that either. Unless it was some great thing they were doing where they wanted to gauge people's reaction.
That could be.
That would be a good test. But I still don't think that we had the technology back then in 97 to fly something like that. I really don't. I don't think we It was huge. It was the size of many, many, many football fields across.
Mhm.
Like some people say, half mile to a mile across. This was a large craft, and it was super slow. So what's keeping that thing up? Why isn't it making any sound? I just don't think we had the technology back then. Today, maybe. Back then,
Maybe.
not.
Yeah, I would agree. Stacey, in addition to doing all this work with in this field, you have other interests. And one thing that I mentioned in the bio, which is very fascinating, is the work that you did on the Roswell archaeological digs with Don Schmidt. I've seen some
Yeah.
pictures of those, and they looked like a real challenge. So can you tell us a little about that?
It was fun. It was extremely rewarding, and it was a challenge. This was back in 2013 when we did the last big one. And Don Schmidt put this together, and he needed some people that knew what they were doing as far as field investigation work and field work. So he asked if Phoenix MUFON could get together a group of people to come out. So we did. We had 10 of us that drove over to the Roswell area, and we had hotels lined up there. We had SUVs lined up, rental cars for all of us. We had equipment. We had 4 film crews there with us. We had Jaime Maussan and his crew from Mexico. We had a film crew from Atlanta. We had a film crew from Denmark, and we had National Geographic there. So it was very well documented, and we were out on the land, and this is basically about 100 miles northwest of Roswell. It's not right in Roswell that this all happened so many years ago. It was way out there in the desert. I mean, there's nothing there. It's just barren. It's high desert area. So it's about, 4,000 feet or so, 5,000 maybe. It's very barren. There's nothing to stop the wind. It's really windy and it just blows all day long. So what we did is we figured from the history of the winds and the weather from way long time ago when this happened in 1947, where the crash would have happened, when it crashed onto the ground and the debris flew up in the air, what direction would this have gone according to the winds? So we were covering what we thought was the debris field, not the crash site, but the debris field. So we're looking for anything out there that would be buried, maybe taken down into animal burrows under the ground, something that just may have eroded up from the ground off the hillsides with the rainwater, washing things along for so many years. So we separated things out into grids, 10 feet square grids. And we had, GPS location on each one of those. And we went through everything with the Geiger counters to see if there was any metal or metal-like substances that we could get out of the ground there. And we found a lot of really interesting things there. We came up with nails, just so many nails. So what had happened is the area was flown over and seeded with millions and millions and millions of nails in the area a year or two after this event happened. So that anyone that went out there looking for things would get so frustrated with their metal detectors when all they're finding is nails that they would not come back again. So we still found tons of nails. And this is an area where there's nothing built there. So the Army had come in and seeded it with nails. We also came up with a couple of buttons that came off of the Army uniform of the day. That was really interesting. So the story goes that they had the guys down there on their hands and knees crawling across the ground looking for anything that may have been left from the crash. And maybe they were stretching their buttons a little bit there and some of them were popping off. That's all we can find on that. We did find one little piece of debris there that we did have analyzed, and it had a tensile strength that was off the charts, not even measurable. So strong. And it was about that big, kind of a little L shape, beigey brown color, looked like the kind of material that little kids' toys made by Little Tykes would be made of, that really super hard plastic that lives for about 500 years. It was something along those lines, very lightweight. But we had this tested. It had some things in it that were not on the periodic table of elements. So we could not really follow up on this too much because this was one of those government shutdowns that happened way back then.
Mm-hmm.
Our permit to be out there on the land came from the Department of the Interior. Their desk was shut down. So we never really had our permit to be out there. You could be on public land to a certain degree,
Mm-hmm.
but we didn't want to turn this into anybody because, you know, the whole group
sure.
would maybe get in trouble or something. So it was never followed up on. That little piece is under lock and key here in a super secret place in Phoenix, Arizona. And don't exactly know what that is. I just know that it was really not of this earth.
Mm-hmm.
So that was fun. But I mean, it was a, it was a, I think it was, yeah, it was October when we went out there. So it was just starting to get cold. And like I said, that wind blew all day long. So when we started out in the mornings there with our field work, it was 27 degrees. It was super cold. There's no bathrooms out there. We had tents, a couple of easy up tents set up for, you know, water and granola bars and some food for
Mm-hmm.
people, chairs for them to sit in when they got pretty weary out there. But the wind just tore you up all day long. You're in this wind and your face was burned from the wind.
Oh,
And it just looked like a bunch of rats out there running around. But I mean, it was really fun and we had a great time and it was a wonderful experience. And it's some land out there unlike anything, you know, your imagination just goes wild with what may have happened out there. So it was on the just beyond the Mac Brazel Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just really fun. I mean, we had a great time out there, and you know, it's jaunts like this that people need to do when you get the opportunity. Take those
Mhm.
opportunities to do something like this, because you might not ever get that again.
Yeah.
But to go out and be a piece of, you know, research here, a part of putting the puzzle together, it's just really rewarding to do something like that. And we all had a great time and great memories from it.
Yeah, that's good. But no wonder more people don't go out there because it's not an easy place.
Oh, you would
Yeah.
get lost. If you did not know
Yeah.
where you're going, everything looks the same. Everything looks the same. It's just these rolling yellow hills with nothing on them. There's no landmarks. There's nothing out there. So I would not recommend to anyone that they go out there by themselves unless they have someone that's been out there before and knows where they're going.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So have those 2 seasons of digs been, have they been written about, or have there been documentaries on them? Has anybody done books about them, or?
No, I don't think there was a book done about this at all. Dawn's had 3 or 4 digs out there.
Okay.
And as far as I know, they might have been mentioned in one of his books that he's written. He's written many,
Okay.
and some along with Tom Carey, who was out there with us as well.
Okay.
But I'm not sure there was any books written specifically on this
Specifically
stuff.
on
No.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. We made a short documentary, just messing around. You know, we would set up the video camera, and in the room, the hotel room, each night I would go through and relay to everyone what we did that day, what we found. So there's just a really amateur video that we put together on that, just to kind of document what we were doing, but we never really put that out there for anyone to see, just for us.
Yeah, great. Dan, we don't want to keep our guests too long today. Did you have another question that you want to ask?
Yeah, I just have one kind of follow-up question. So, and Stacey, this could be about you, or this could be about the organization. So what have you learned about the phenomena? What have you learned about the UAP UFO phenomena? Is it back-engineered stuff that humans have produced? Is it extra-dimensional? Is it extraterrestrial? What's your opinion about that, or what have you found?
Well, it might be a little bit of everything at this point. With the technology that we're getting now and the research that we're doing now, it wouldn't surprise me a bit if some of the stuff we're seeing in the skies is some back engineered things that have been crashed or landed that we got a hold of and worked over. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me a bit. It's just what we do. But I think that, you know, to start it all out, this planet has been visited by something for a very long time. It's been documented very well too, from the beginning of time, not really in the written word, but drawn on cave walls. So our petroglyphs and our things that we have all around here, the cave drawings, these things were done because they wanted to document something that they had seen. So you can't deny the validity of that, because what were they drawing? Where did they come up with this design? Where, what were they thinking? Why would they think that a humanoid figure would have a helmet kind of thing on it? Or, they had no idea of things like this. So I really like the ancient archaeology and the astroarchaeology that we can find around the world. That's all kind of, the dots are all connecting on this stuff. There's all kinds of places around the planet that are reporting the same things that they're finding. So yeah, I think that, this planet has been visited for a lot of years, and maybe by a lot of different species. I'm not sure it's all one species. I think that there's a few species out there vying for, let's give it a try at this planet, see what we can do. That would easily be, and then they could be co-indigenous with us. They have been living here on this planet long before we ever were. We just happen to be seeing them once in a while, but they have special abilities where I believe they can slip in and out of dimensions. Our scientists now have told us that they can pretty much identify 11 different dimensions right alongside us at any given time, these parallel universes. We just can't see people slipping in and out of them, but I think that answer would probably be the answer to a lot of things that we can't find out there. We see craft that can go in and out of, mountains, just disappear right in front of you, materialize again somewhere else. I mean, this has been documented by anyone from children up to the elderly. It's just really well documented everywhere. So I don't have an actual answer on what this is, but I think it is definitely interdimensional. I think that there are perhaps extraterrestrial from, some exoplanets out there. But again, what we know of physics, it would take an awful long time for them to get here. So when you put the, quantum physics in place and you've got the wormhole and the way that it can bend, that's a great traveling device right there.
Yeah.
So it could be coming from far out in space. It could be coming from our inner core of our Earth. It could be coming from the abysses deep in our oceans. It could be something coming from the backside of the moon. There's all kinds of possibilities out there, and any one of them or all of them could be true.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot to think about. Before
Yeah.
we go, can you give us some quick information about the upcoming symposium?
Yes. Once a year, MUFON has their own big giant symposium that they hold. It's a big conference. This year, it's going to be held outskirts of Dallas, Texas, in Irving, Texas. It's going to be July 11th through 14th. It is open to the public. There is a registration fee that you pay, a beautiful hotel, 2 full days of fantastic lectures. And there's vendors there. There's site excursions. I believe the site excursion this year is a museum, like maybe the Air and Space Museum there, I think is what the excursion is. There's a big banquet to, start it all off on Friday night with a keynote speaker. And it's just really a lot of great information. You're going to walk away from there with your head just going, wow, I can't believe what I just heard, what I witnessed, who I met. It's a lot of fun. So yes, I'll be there heading up the field investigator training, which is on Thursday of that week. So it's a full day of training there before the symposium starts. And it's going to be a really great time. So if anyone's interested, you can find out all the information there by going to MUFON.com.
Great.
Stacey, who's the main speaker at the symposium? Is there kind of a headliner?
I can't remember who the keynote speaker is this year, but they've got a bunch of speakers. I know Robert Salas is one of the speakers, Richard Beckwith, Marianne Robb and Dave Rich will be talking about the UAP PD endeavor that they have going on. There's a lot of great speakers, different subjects. The common theme of this year's symposium is friend or foe. So they're going to be going on both sides. What do people think is going on here, friend or foe with the extraterrestrials? So it's gonna prove to be really fun and interesting.
Yeah, it's always a lot of fun. So,
Yeah.
well, Stacey, thank you so much for taking the time to
Yes,
be with
thanks.
us. This has been so interesting, and we would love to talk to you again in the future, down the road, when if other things are happening, and you
Okay,
want to
I'd
share
love
with
to
them,
do
then
that.
that would be great. Yeah. So, thank you, Dan. Thanks for being
Okay,
here with
thank
me
you.
today.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay. So we're
If
going to
you
say
can,
goodbye to Stacey and to our viewers. Everybody take care, and we will see you again soon.